Nagas since time immemorial, we have been having our own land. It's our ancestral land. So when we talk about integration, we are very much for it, especially the mothers.
After a long years of our resistance, after a long years of our struggle, a ceasefire was signed between our national workers, the Naga representative, and the government of India. And this has brought a new ray of hope for the common people and for the younger people, the younger generation in particular.
We have common, the river is common, lake is common, and mineral resources are common, and everybody could use. And there is that was profiting the poor people.
We don't have Greater Nagaland, nor do we have smaller Nagaland. We have just the land that belongs to us. Nothing more than that, nothing less than that.
One of the propaganda by the state agencies has been to say that if there's a settlement or if there's a unification of Naga areas, that non-Nagas would have to leave.
Today the government of India has taken the bold decision to say that the Naga political history is unique. The Naga political issue is unique.
I will unite them and they will voice the feeling of the Nagas to the factions, to the government of India.
So, Nigo Gavogi, Nigo Kadipa Nagamatsugato, Nicola Konuto, Hotel, Vogatsuki, Rapuchi. Nagaland Christian country, but the Lahigo Christmas, Monte, he will get in
দীপ নিভে গেছে মম নিষিদ্ধ সমীরে
India won her independence from Britain in August 1947. However, the accords signed at the time failed to address the nationalist aspirations of many of the ethnic and religious groups who went on to form numerous independent movements. During World War II, Nagaland became known to the outside world during the fierce battle between the Allied forces and the Japanese Imperial Army at Kohima. The Naga were caught in the crossfire, engaged as armed scouts, porters or spies for both sides in what was known to the Allies as the Burma Campaign and to the Japanese as the infamous Operation Impal. Even before the war, however, Naga nationalist aspirations had already begun. The Naga Club, a group formed from prominent Naga leaders drawn from those who had returned from France and had served in the British Army during World War I, submitted a political memorandum to the Simon Commission in January 1929 with 20 signatories and demanded exclusion of the Naga from the so-called Reformed Scheme of India. The memorandum, which was eventually debated in the House of Commons, resulted in the exclusion of the Naga inhabited area from the provisions of the Government of India Act 1935. Nagaland was made an excluded area. The administration of the Naga-Hills was left to the discretion of the Governor of Assam, whose main objective was simply to protect the Nagas from economic exploitation. From 1939 to 1945, the Nagas negotiated intensely with British India for independence. With their roots in the Naga Club, the nationalists under the leadership of Mr. T. Alibi Imti and Gami Zapu Phizo, T. Sakri and others, formed a political group in February 1946, the Naga National Council, with the aim of uniting all Naga tribes under one political umbrella. Prior to 1947, the Naga National Council announced to both India and Britain that it would form a sovereign democratic republic called Nagaland. In June 1947, the Governor of Assam, Sir Akbar Haidari, negotiated with the NNC on behalf of the Indian Constituent Assembly and signed a 9-point agreement with it. The last point of the agreement was the most controversial. After 10 years of the agreement's implementation, the NNC would be asked whether it wished the rest of the agreement to be extended for a further period or wanted to reach a new agreement regarding the future of the Naga people. However, on the very same evening of signing the agreement, Sir Akbar Haidari warned the Naga leaders that if the Naga-Hills district refused to join the Union, India would use force against them. Despite this warning, the NNC wasted no time in defying the Government of India. The Naga National Council declared complete independence of the Naga people on the 14th of August 1947, one day before India itself declared its own independence. Then, at the end of 1948, Sir Akbar died of a massive stroke, and with him also died the Nagas' agreement that he had negotiated. The Nagas are quintessentially a hill people. The name Naga is derived from the Burmese word Naka, meaning literally people with pierced earlobes. The name also possibly has its roots in the Assamese word Nogga, meaning naked. Today the Naga number over 3 million people, and they are widely dispersed throughout the Indian states of Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh, Manipur, Assam, and parts of Burma too. Nagaland has always been a country of tribal democracies, quite free from the domination of a single person, such as a king or prince or dictator, and in all there are more than 30 tribes. They've always lived proudly in harmony with nature, leading a simple and utterly independent way of life. In the past, headhunting was widely practiced by the Naga as a way of affirming and sustaining their culture. For example, as a fertility ritual, it was celebrated to ensure good harvests. Spiritually, it was used to protect the community from evil spirits. And in warfare, it celebrated bravery and conferred honor on warriors. It also affirmed social bonds, helping to define people's social status in the overall tribal hierarchy, and to legitimize the positions of those in authority. Historically, before the arrival of the British, the Naga homeland never had any connection at all with either India or Burma. The first British contact with the Nagas was in 1832 in the Ngami country, where the Ngami resisted, fearing conquest. The British, however, managed to dominate the area with their superior firepower. The Naga homeland, in fact, only came under British administrative control in 1866. After the fall of Konoma in 1879, an unwritten peace treaty was negotiated between the Nagas and the British, under which the Naga homeland was excluded from British India and became known as the Naga-Hills Excluded Area. In May 1951, the NNC launched a plebiscite in Nagaland, which resulted in 99% of all Nagas endorsing complete support for an independent Nagaland. The issue of Naga independence and the verdict of the Naga plebiscite was put to the then first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru, in Delhi on March the 11th, 1952. Now, even though Nehru had supported self-determination for the Nagas in 1944, when faced with the demand, he simply exploded with anger and exclaimed,
"Whether heaven falls or India goes to pieces and blood runs red in the country, I don't care. Whether I'm here or for that matter, any other body comes in, I don't care. Nagas will not be allowed to become independent."
In January 1952, the Naga National Council launched a civil disobedience campaign, refusing to pay taxes and boycotting India's first ever general election. No Nagas stood for election. No Nagas voted. Nevertheless, on March the 30th, 1953, the Nagas welcomed Nehru's decision to visit Kohima. The Prime Minister was accompanied by his daughter, Indira Gandhi, and also by the Burmese Premier, U Nu. The Naga National Council leaders were busy preparing the memorandum to be submitted to the two Prime Ministers. Thousands of Nagas gathered at the Kohima football ground, but Nehru was rigid. Just before the meeting, he gave instructions stopping the Nagas from making any oral or written address to the reception. As a result, the Naga delegation walked out in defiance of such blatant repression. Nehru and U Nu were left, almost alone, to address just a handful of government servants. Nehru felt humiliated. Immediately, arrest warrants were issued for 8 NNC leaders. The whole Naga-Hills district and the sensitive areas were declared disturbed. House raids on Naga leaders followed, and many went into hiding. The Disturbed Area Act was imposed on the Naga-Hills in 1954. Nagaland, in effect, fell under the cloud of martial law. Realizing the danger of armed repression, on August the 10th, 1954, Phizo entered into agreement with the leaders of Free Nagas and formed the Naga Country Guard to oppose the Indian Armed Forces. The first armed resistance group was born. By 1955, the Indian Army, or the Jawan, moved into Trensang. the Assam Disturbed Areas Act of 1955 was introduced to enable the Assam Armed Police and the Assam Rifles to act without any legal restriction whatsoever. A reign of terror broke out, and the open war commenced, a war that has brought heavy casualties and loss of life to both sides for many years. On the 22nd of March 1956, the Naga National Council inaugurated its federal government of Nagaland, known as the FGN, an armed opposition movement, and amalgamated with the Naga Home Guard, soon to be known as the Naga Army. In 1956, the fighting intensified between the Indian security forces and the Naga resistance. Churches were burned, villages razed, aircraft were used to bomb and harass the Nagas. Women were raped, and they continue to be molested. Even places of worship were not spared from the violations. Bible Hill, for example, a Christian mission centre in Fort Kohima, was occupied by units of the 14th Assam Rifles. They burnt the Reverend Palesto Chase, the head of the centre, to death. And between 1954 and 1964, innocent villagers were arrested and confined in Indian jails and concentration camps. Many died, others were simply mutilated. However, while the armed confrontation continued, attempts were made to broker a peace. The Naga People's Convention was formed in Kohima on the 26th of August 1957 to mediate between the warring factions and to try somehow to work out a peaceful solution. A 16-point plan was drafted and put to the Indian government. But in fact it simply served as a ploy to divide the Nagas along territorial and tribal lines. Nevertheless, with the signing of the 16-point agreement by the Naga People Convention representatives and the Indian officials on July the 26th, 1960, it did appear that the issue of Naga statehood was officially recognized. The state was incorporated as the fully fledged State of Nagaland under the Constitution of India on the 1st of December 1963. For the first time in their history, the white dove of the Naga flew proudly in the Naga-Hills. A peace mission, initiated by the Nagaland Baptist Churches Council, known as the NBCC, was convened on February the 24th, 1964. It was made up of the following members. First, Mr. B.P. Chaliha, Chief Minister of Assam, a long-time veteran of Naga problems. Mr. J.P. Nayaran, a long-standing Indian politician and a devoted Gandhian, and the Reverend Michael Scott, a British citizen who had championed the cause of the anti-apartheid movement in South Africa. On May 24, 1964, the federal government of Nagaland accepted the ceasefire agreement at Chakrabama, Fek district. It refused, however, to sign on the grounds that it was a Sunday. Only B.P. Chaliha, one of the members of the peace mission, signed the agreement, which was then handed to Nehru on May the 26th. Unfortunately, Nehru had no chance to read it. He was found dead in his sleep on the morning of May 27. Nevertheless, the ceasefire agreement did come into effect on September the 6th, 1964, when Lal Bahadur Shastri became the Prime Minister of India.
64 wo tula sabaje idang China international reverence scout lo yang lefno international level go la sam tame ses for dang lam tum dang la je eta yaro dang tok lili rao. Taga isan sami baje. Metong chilla dong lan. Dabana ceasefire je. Dong lan raksha be. Isan raksha masa. Dong lan raksha ceasefire je. Desala operation, army operations,
However, the first round of peace talks failed to reach an understanding of the Naga issue. Y.D. Gudavia, the Secretary, Ministry of External Affairs, dismissed the whole thing with the words,
India wants nothing from Nagaland. Nagaland has not enough and cannot be left to perish in the jungle, even if the jungle is beautiful.
After 3 further years of peace negotiation, with so many irreconcilable and different opinions and disagreements, the peace mission finally came to an end, following the arrest of the Reverend Michael Scott in Geelong on May the 4th, 1966. The east wind had begun. In 1966, the NNC sent Phizo's most trusted Secretary General, the handsome Twinkling Muiva, on a goodwill mission to China through the Kachin connection. The purpose of Muiva's mission was to gain support from China, while at the same time establishing diplomatic relations with the Kachin Independence Army, known as the KIA. The Council's long-term strategy was based on the belief that China's support for the Nagas would last as long as Peking and Delhi were hostile to each other in the wake of the 1962 Chinese invasion of Arunachal Pradesh, the then Northeast Frontier Agency. Muiva and his brave band did it the hard way, through a great long march that took his comrades through the thick, rain-sodden jungle. It was worth it. They reached Yunnan province on the Chinese border in 1967. The lady was in power, and the era of straight talk had begun. During Indira Gandhi's regime, the Indo-Naga talks continued for 6 full rounds. However, Mrs. Gandhi failed to understand, or perhaps she chose to reject, the whole notion of Naga sovereignty. Deadlock ensued from October 1967 onwards, and then the Nagas experienced a further blow.
We had 6 rounds of talk with the government of India. But after 6 rounds, the ceasefire was made the deadlock. Since then, situation flared up over all Nagaland, so again, fighting started. We demanded sovereignty, whereas government of India decided that we will give you protectorate. So we rejected it, and the ceasefire came to a deadlock.
The 1971 Liberation War in East Pakistan led to the emergence of Bangladesh, and it deprived the Naga resistance of their main foreign base. The Indians, insisting on treating the Naga issue as simply a law and order problem, declared on the 31st of August 1972 that the Naga National Council, the federal government of Nagaland, and the whole Naga army were simply unlawful associations under the so-called Unlawful Activities Act 1967. As a result, Nagaland's status was taken from the Ministry of External Affairs and downgraded to a simple internal matter under the responsibility of the Home Ministry. Indian military might. August 31st, 1972. The Indian government imposed the Armed Forces Special Powers Regulation Act of 1958. It provided Indian Army personnel, right down to the rank of a non-commissioned officer, with the power to shoot and kill, to enter, search, arrest without warrant any person against whom reasonable suspicion exists that he has committed or is about to commit a recognizable offence. And the ceasefire agreement, which was signed between the Government of India and the Federal Government of Nagaland, was then torn up by the Governor of Nagaland. The whole of the Naga-Hills were just designated a disturbed area, with wide-ranging powers given to the Indian Army.
Let this dark day go from my mind, and let the day that I was born be blotted from memory, to save me from being left forlorn. My soul, my body lie in shreds. My faith in mankind all betrayed. I cry to heaven for justice, for nowhere else can it be done. And I denounce those lustful brutes before the great celestial throne. Dear one, grieve not for what I've done, for it is to Jehovah's breast that I now go to wait for you, where all the weary are at rest.
This poem is about Rose, a young 18-year-old woman of Naprong village in the Tangkol area, who was raped by several Indian soldiers. She'd been engaged to a young man of her village, but she committed suicide because she could not bear to live with the memory of her humiliation. Rose is just one of many girls who've been violated by the Indian security forces in the Naga-Hills. In 1974, Prime Minister Indira Gandhi imposed an internal state of emergency. Indian forces were ordered to launch a fierce crackdown on Naga underground resistance. The NNC, FGN, was under pressure, with offers to negotiate with the Indian government remaining open. The resistance, led by Biseto Medom Keo, Keviyale, Phizo's brother, and others, met with the then Governor of Assam, Lalan Prasad Singh, a former Home Secretary of the Government of India, at Shillong in November 1975. They agreed to accept the Indian Constitution. They agreed to lay down their arms and to return to normal life in Nagaland, leaving their jungle hideout. The Shillong Accord was signed on the 11th of November 1975. The accord was denounced by Isaac, the then Vice President of NNC, and Muiva, the Secretary General, who both called the agreement a betrayal and the signatories traitors. It was a period of serious confusion for the Naga people. The crucial participants in the accord were the mediators, led by the Reverend Longri Ao, M. Aram of the Gandhi Mission, and Lungshim Shaisa, who had close contact with L.P. Singh. However, the Shillong Accord did not achieve what New Delhi had been seeking for decades. In fact, it inflamed the simmering differences between the different underground groups.
We all worked together as NNC and Federal Government of Nagaland. But when we were out of our country, they entered into Shillong Accord, which is a complete sellout of the national right and complete surrender. They accepted the Indian Constitution on their own volition, and they agreed to lay down their arms to surrender. And so when we heard it, we wrote 3 letters to the President of Naga National Council, Mr. Phizo, who was in London. And 3 letters were written, and in the last letter, 7 delegation members signed it, telling him that if he will not condemn the Shillong Accord right away, then we shall take him to be a party to it. And also, history will blame him. But he never did it. He never condemned the Shillong Accord. He rather said that it is a process. So from that we came to know that he was a party to it. And so when we came home, we were outside at that time.
As a result, Muiva and Isaac, a close compatriot who was then in the Eastern Naga Revolutionary Council, the NNRC, area of Burma, with SS Kaplang, a Konyak leader of Burmese origin, together formed the National Socialist Council of Nagaland, the NSCN, in 1980. The war continued. Oinam village, July the 9th, 1987. It was here a decisive battle took place. An advanced group of Naga guerrillas attacked the 3rd Assam Rifles, and an entire company was overrun by the Naga forces. Naga morale was sky high. The whole of the company's arsenal was captured. Hundreds of arms and rounds of ammunition fell into Naga hands, but the triumph was to prove short-lived. What became known as the Oinam incident led to changes in Indian strategy and policy that were to prove very damaging indeed for the Nagas. The Indian Army counterattacked, launching Operation Bluebird. It instigated a divide and rule policy between the Nagas and their neighbouring tribal group, the Kukis, inciting communal discord wherever possible. Blood and tears flowed. This time not between the Indians and the Nagas, but between the Nagas and their Kuki brothers. Then in April 1988, the National Socialist Council of Nagaland split into 2 factions, following a bloody purge engineered by SS Kaplang. He accused Muiva and Isaac of collaborating with the Indian government to renounce Naga sovereignty. On April 30th, 1988, the Burmese military joined Klaplang's followers and surrounded the National Socialist Council of Nagaland's headquarters, killing about 200 members of the Thankful tribe, loyal to Muiva. Muiva and Isaac managed, however, to escape, along with some 200 others, to safety. Within a month, in the thick jungle, many died from hunger and sickness. Only 33, including Muiva and Isaac, managed to survive. In 1990, A.Z. Phizo, one of the key architects of Naga resistance, passed away in London. In his death, Phizo achieved the dignity and the honour that was denied to him all his life by the Indian government. It was indeed a fitting irony. His body was brought back from London draped in the National Council flag. In his death, Phizo finally attained a position, much to the disdain of the government of India, that he had always had in the hearts and minds of his people. That of a head of state, a sovereign ruler. Nevertheless, having recovered from the bloody and painful attack, the NSCN, under the leadership of Isaac and Muiva, emerged as the strongest resistance force in the entire region. And then, following the United Nations International Year of Indigenous People in 1993, NSCN representatives began to participate in various UN gatherings. The Naga issue was taken up in the international community, especially the Indian government's role in human rights violations in the Naga areas. Something, however, which the Indian government hardly bothered to deny. Later in January 1993, the NSCN, again under the leadership of Isaac and Muiva, were invited to represent the Nagas to the Unrepresented Nations and Peoples Organization, UNPO, based at The Hague in the Netherlands. In 1997, the then Prime Minister of India, Mr. H.D. Deve Gowda, informed the Lok Sabha that the government had initiated dialogue with the NSCN, Isaka and issued a statement endorsing the peace process on the 30th of May 1997. As a result, on the 24th of July 1997, the NSCN, Isaka Muiva, and the Indian Prime Minister, Mr. I.K. Gujral, announced a 3-month ceasefire that came into effect on August 1st, 1997. Peace had come at last.
We don't have Greater Nagaland, nor do we have smaller Nagaland. We have just the land that belongs to us. Nothing more than that, nothing less than that. Because our land was compact, and still it is compact. It has been divided by the external forces against the wishes, against the aspiration of the Naga people. So there is nothing wrong on the part of the Nagas to live together as brothers and sisters, because we have been a family. And so there is no greater Nagaland. There is no smaller Nagaland. But the problem is that India wanted to keep the Nagas divided. This is the issue.
We must have to live together. That was the aspiration expressed. So even now, even if India refuses to recognize it immediately, I believe sooner or later India will agree. She will permit us to live together. That is our aspiration. And we cannot just live separated. We have to live together. And there is no force on earth to leave us separated. At this stage, the UNO is also there. I believe someday UNO will come to our rescue. The friendly nations, like the Americans, like the Germans, or like the Chinese people, like the Thai people.
Well, there's nothing such as absolute power to me. I mean, there's nothing such as absolute power. In other words, no nation or a country has absolute power or independence of its own. Every country or a nation depends on the other for its survival. So to me, I would say, okay, I mean, the concept like sovereignty or independence are concepts that has kept the movement alive, for which we are grateful to our elders, the leaders. But in reality, as I said, in reality, these are concepts, and in reality, no nation or no country enjoys absolute power. To me, sovereignty or independence would be if we are allowed to determine our future. That's our sovereignty, and that's our independence.
The Naga homeland have been divided without the expressed and prior consent of the Naga people, and for which in the course of our history our people have been placed in different administrative jurisdictions, and this has become one of very big bone of contention for the Nagas, as well as for those people who fear that Nagas coming together, would be a sort of threat for them. Well, I can only say that this Naga integration, it's actually not even integration. It's a matter of restoring back the Naga homeland to its own original map. In fact, there is no two opinion on this. As far as Nagas are concerned, we would like to live under one administrative roof, And we have been saying this, that our people and our land have been divided without our consent, without our knowledge, and therefore we strongly reject this, and we will not accept this, and sooner or later that Naga areas should come to one administrative roof, and we are confident that this will happen.
You see, Nagas were one. We were forcibly divided into different groups of locations. And the Naga people have been always trying to raise the issue of the reality of the Naga political issue and its history. Today the government of India has taken the bold decision to say that the Naga political history is unique. The Naga political issue is unique. So that means the history of the Naga people has been recognized. So when the history of the Naga people is recognized, the solution must be based on that reality of history. So the issue of neighboring states does not come into the picture.
I think for Nagas, for Naga identity and Naga rights to be fully realized, the unification of Naga areas is imperative. But having said that, I think the more important question is, how do we go about unifying Naga areas? And we need to put that within the broader perspective of self-determination, because we recognize that Naga areas have been arbitrarily divided by the Indian state. And their approach so far to the issue of unification of Naga areas has not been from the point of self-determination, but has been from the point of the Constitution of India. And this raises a lot of complications. And therefore I think what is more important at this point of time is, how do we go about resolving the issues of unification of Naga areas so that the consequences to that would still be able to have a creative or a conducive atmosphere where the traditional relationships between the Nagas and her neighbors continue in a way that of mutual respect and understanding.
Well, Nagas since time immemorial, we have been having our own land. It's our ancestral land. So when we talk about integration, we are very much for it, especially the mothers. Because why we say we are for it is because it is our home. We feel that our home should not be broken. Why should Nagas, when we have been Nagas since time immemorial, why should we be separated from our families, from our homes? So Naga mothers are very much for our Nagas integration, and we shall stand for it, and we will not compromise. This boundary, which has separated the Nagas into different parts, is an artificial boundary, and we do not recognize it. And we will definitely, one day, we will definitely find ourselves into one family. Though we are disintegrated, outwardly, our hearts, our minds are still one. Emotionally, we are very much integrated. So Naga mothers, we feel that integration should be there, and we will uphold integration at any cost.
Sir Akbar Haidari is wrong. He cannot do that. I'll come to the Naga-Hills and we'll ask them to shoot me first before one Naga is shot.